The city awoke not with a gentle yawn, but with a groan. It was a place carved from steel and concrete, and its morning symphony was a chorus of roaring engines, the distant wail of sirens, and the rhythmic hiss of bus doors opening and closing like weary lungs. A fine, persistent drizzle coated the world in a gray sheen, making the streetlights bleed into shimmering puddles on the asphalt. Aboard the crowded 7:30 express, a rolling capsule of shared anonymity, Liam Johnson sat pressed against a fogged window. He was a man built of quiet resilience, his broad shoulders slightly stooped as if carrying an invisible weight. In his mid-30s, with kind eyes and a jawline that held a hint of exhaustion, he clutched a worn leather satchel on his lap. It was a relic from his father, a man who taught him that dignity was a quiet thing, something you carried inside, not something you wore for the world to see. For years, that dignity had been all Liam had. His father's sudden passing had left a void that was never filled, and his mother's subsequent illness had become the central focus of his life. The quiet, rhythmic hum of her oxygen machine was the soundtrack to his days and nights. Every odd job, every polite rejection letter, every penny saved was for her. But today felt different. Today was an interview at Finch & Associates, a top-tier consulting firm. It wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline, a chance to finally pull his mother out of the shadows of their cramped, drafty apartment. Hope, fragile and precious, fluttered in his chest. The bus lurched to a stop, its hydraulics groaning. The doors hissed open, and she stepped on. Her name was Catherine Vance, and she moved as if the world was a stage built solely for her. She was in her early 30s, her blonde hair swept into a severe, elegant chignon. Her oyster-colored trench coat seemed to repel the city's grime, and her heels made sharp staccato clicks on the damp floor, a metronome of impatience. Her gaze swept the bus, a cool, dismissive inventory, and then it landed on Liam. A flicker of annoyance tightened her perfectly painted lips. She raised her voice, a clear, sharp sound designed to cut through the morning murmur. "Unbelievable," she declared to no one and everyone. "A grown man taking up a seat while a lady is forced to stand. Has chivalry completely died?" The bus fell into a sudden, charged silence. Heads turned. Eyes, some curious, some hostile, some blankly indifferent, all found their way to Liam. A man in a worn-out baseball cap smirked into his newspaper. An older woman behind him clicked her tongue, her disapproval aimed not at the accuser, but at the accused. It was a familiar, suffocating weight, the silent consensus that his presence was an inconvenience. Liam's stomach coiled into a tight knot. He wanted no trouble. He simply wanted to get to his interview, to hold on to the fragile hope he'd nurtured all morning. With a slow, deliberate breath, he rose from his seat. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "You don't need to shout to be heard, son." He thought that would be the end of it. He was wrong. As Liam stepped into the crowded aisle, Catherine moved to slip past him. The bus jolted, and in that split second, she made her move. It was a fluid, practiced gesture. The lid of her paper coffee cup came off, and a stream of scalding, dark liquid arced through the air. It splashed across the chest of Liam's crisp white shirt, a brutal, ugly stain against the fabric he had spent an hour ironing the night before. The bitter scent of coffee filled the air, but it was her words that truly burned. She didn't feign an accident. Instead, a cruel smile bloomed on her face. "Oh my," she sneered, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "But I suppose it suits you. It almost matches." The insult hung in the air, thick and poisonous. Time seemed to slow. Liam stood frozen, the heat of the coffee seeping through his shirt, a stark contrast to the icy chill spreading through his veins. This was more than an inconvenience. It was a violation, a public branding. He looked up and saw the other passengers. No one offered a napkin. No one met his gaze. The bus driver, a man with a tired, weathered face, glanced in the rearview mirror, his expression a mask of detached neutrality, before he looked away. "Not my problem." Catherine slid gracefully into the now vacant seat, crossed her legs, and began scrolling through her phone. The victor of a battle Liam hadn't even known he was fighting. He clutched the handle of his father's satchel, the worn leather a grounding force. He wouldn't let her drag him down to her level. Dignity was a quiet thing. He made his way to the back of the bus, every pair of eyes a silent judgment on his back. Near the rear exit, he saw a young boy, no older than 10, staring at him with wide, confused eyes. In that boy's face, Liam saw a reflection of himself years ago, watching the world treat his own family with the same casual cruelty. The sight solidified something within him. He straightened his shoulders, the damp, stained shirt clinging uncomfortably to his skin, and held his head high. Unseen by most, a man sitting by a window on the far side of the bus had observed the entire exchange. He was older, perhaps in his late 50s, with a salt and pepper beard and a gaze that was sharp and analytical. He wore a simple but well-tailored gray coat. He hadn't looked away, nor had he shown pity. He had simply watched, his expression unreadable, a quiet assessment that missed nothing. For a brief moment, his eyes met Liam's across the crowded space, a silent acknowledgement. Then Liam looked away, focusing only on his destination. The lobby of Finch and Associates was a cathedral of modern success. White marble floors gleamed, and glass walls reflected the silent hum of ambition. As Liam approached the reception desk, the woman's eyes lingered for a fraction of a second too long on the dark stain marring his shirt before she directed him to a row of chairs. He sat, the worn satchel on his lap, a stark contrast to the sleek, minimalist surroundings. A few minutes later, the elevator doors chimed, and Catherine Vance stepped out, looking cool and composed. Liam barely registered her. She was just another face in a sea of corporate power. "Mr. Liam Johnson." Liam looked up. The man standing before him was the same man from the bus, the quiet observer in the gray coat. Now he was dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, his presence commanding the space around him. "I'm Alistair Finch," the man said, extending a hand. His grip was firm. "CEO." Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. "Finch?" "As in Finch and Associates." Mr. Finch led him down a long corridor to a glass-walled conference room. Inside, a panel of executives waited, and sitting among them, looking poised and confident, was Catherine Vance. A jolt, cold and sharp, shot through Liam. She didn't recognize him at first glance. To her, he was just another candidate. The interview began. Liam, despite the tremor in his hands, answered with focus and clarity. When it was Catherine's turn, she was polished and articulate, a picture of corporate competence. Then Mr. Finch leaned forward. His gaze was fixed on Catherine. "Miss Vance," he began, his voice dangerously soft. "This firm is built on a foundation of integrity. Tell me, how do you believe that integrity holds up when you believe no one of consequence is watching?" The color drained from Catherine's face. Her professional mask crumbled. I'm not sure I understand the question," she stammered. "I think you do, Mr. Finch replied, his voice still quiet, but now edged with steel. "I was on the 7:30 express this morning." The silence in the room was absolute. Catherine's eyes widened in horror as the realization crashed down upon her. She looked from Mr. Finch to Liam, at his stained shirt, and the entire ugly scene replayed in the sudden, stark clarity of her own ruin. Mr. Finch stood. "Thank you for your time, Miss Vance. That will be all." He then turned to Liam, a flicker of profound respect in his eyes. "Mr. Johnson, my team will be in touch with an offer this afternoon. Welcome to the firm." As Liam walked out of the building a while later, the city no longer felt so gray. The drizzle had stopped, and a sliver of sunlight broke through the clouds. He knew the world was still full of shadows, of quiet battles fought on crowded buses every day. But he also knew that sometimes dignity wasn't about winning a fight. It was about how you stood your ground, quietly and resolutely, when the world tried to knock you down. And today, in the heart of a city that rarely noticed, his quiet stand had been heard.